welcome to Southern Sense Talk Radio with your host, the radio chick, Annie Ubellis. Join Annie on Tuesdays and Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time with an open chat room full of her regulars. And yes, you can even call in. Call 917-889-3675. That's 917-889-3675 to be a part of the action on the phone line. Not able to listen live? Not a problem. You can always catch Annie, the radio chick, and Southern Sense Talk Radio podcast in archives at southern-sense.com. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Southern Sense the right way.
Thank God it's Friday. It's Friday. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Must be Southern Sense here on Blog Talk Radio, High Plains Media, SHR Media, Kinetic Hi-Fi, the Fix FM out of Charleston, South Carolina. And you know what I'm going to say next. Just go to our website, which is the name of the show. Put a hyphen in the middle, southern-sense.com. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Annie, the radio chick, along with my erudite and handsome co-host, Curtis C.S. Bennett. Good afternoon, Curtis.
Hey, how you doing, Annie?
Come on, Curtis, wake up.
Hey, can I do my Hillary imitation?
Oh, you can do your best at it. I love it. I love it.
I've worked on that all week.
Want to welcome everyone that's listening in our studio. If you want to join the conversation, please remember to press 1, and I'll be happy to bring you on live. Want to welcome everyone that's up in the chat room, Sasquatch and my friend Kel of Red Fox Radio and Radio Jihad. We got an exciting show today. We have returning with us, I think this is her 4th or 5th appearance with us, Danae. She's returning. She's got a brand new release out, and her album debuted on July 1st. So she's here for her new release. So she'll be joining us at 1:15. And at the second half of the show, we're going to have a new guest, Pastor Michael Gonzalez. He's got an organization called The Alliance. It's a network of Christian leaders that are working to try to influence public policy and legislation through ministry. And it's going to be really, really interesting. Man. So we've got a lot to do and a lot to say, Curtis.
Yes, and I'm ready to rock and roll now. Get the show on the go.
And I got to tell you, Sweet Sue, since she can't join in the chat room, she sends me texts during the show. So, Curtis, she sends you a special hello with hugs and kisses. Sweet of her. All right. Now, today, this weekend is going to be a really, really difficult weekend. And I know Fox News has been running a weekend special. Some of the other radio stations have been doing a special. And I am loath to say it's an anniversary because it sounds like you're celebrating something. I would say it's the 15th memorial of the events of 9/11, the terrorist attack on the United States, the worst terrorist attack we have ever seen. And today's show, people that listen know that every show is dedicated to a fallen hero, and sometimes it's to multiple heroes. But today's dedication is going out to all of the victims of 9/11. And we still have victims dying today from 9/11. Those first responders that responded and worked endlessly, tirelessly, to try to help retrieve those that were assassinated on 9/11, to try to dig through the ashes of those ruins. And today they suffer from various types of cancers and still are dying. So we can't say it was almost 3,000 on 9/11. It is more than 3,000 that have died. But we also have the victims that are the families that are left behind. And today's dedication is sent out to the kids also. There was an article on CNN. Believe it or not, CNN once in a while has something good up there. And it was titled 9/11 Kids to Terrorists. You Lose. The story was by Wayne Drash, Town Hall produced, and by CNN's Brooke Baldwin and Lindsay Perna. And I'm going to read excerpts that appeared up on their website, and then I'm going to play a clip. It reads, "Their fathers were killed on 9/11, and 15 years later they carry a message. Look at us, more resilient than ever. There were 3,051 children under the age of 18 who lost a parent on 9/11. 10 of them, ages 14 to 29, gathered on the 10th floor of 7 World Trade Center recently to share their stories in a town hall with CNN's Brooke Baldwin. They spoke of their loss and of lessons learned, of what it has been like to come of age in an age of terror. All lost their fathers. 5 of the 10 have no memory of them. 2, Kevin Hannaford and Rodney Wooten, were born after 9/11. They exude youthful optimism mixed with tremendous maturity. They don't bear hate, far from it. The building that once stood where they gathered collapsed the afternoon of that fateful day, collateral damage from the towers being felt. The new building has taken its place, personifies them, having risen from the ashes, rebuilt after years of hard work, polished and impressive. The room overlooks the 9/11 memorial with its footprint waterfalls and quiet space. Hallowed ground, their fathers' graves. Caroline Tumulty Olimar, 15. When she goes to the site, she finds her father's name inscribed in the bronze parapet surrounding the memorial pool where the South Tower once stood. Lance Richard Tumulty was the football captain of his high school team, a 32-year-old manager of aero brokers who worked on the 84th floor. She reaches out and runs her hand across the letters. Kevin Parks, 29, mentors Rodney Wooten, 14. He takes him to ball games and dinners and lends support when the pain becomes overwhelming. Rodney is the same age now that Kevin was when he lost his dad. 21-year-old Austin Vukosa knows well. He was 6 when his father, Alfred Vukosa, 34, was killed. One of the few memories he recalls is playing catch in the park, his dad snagging the baseball with his bare hands. In the months after the attacks, he went to his mother with the plan to join his father. He wanted to slit his wrists. Jessica Waring's father was a die-hard Green Bay Packers fan. Recently, when she was walking down the street in Manhattan and thinking about him, she looked up to see someone wearing a Packers jersey. The time on her phone read 9/11. It gave her chills. That kind of thing happens all the time. Nicole Pila, 17, often listens to a recording of her father in his final moments. And for Sal Pepe, a formal goodbye to his namesake came 10 years after the attack. His father, Salvatore Pepe, 45, worked on the 97th floor of the North Tower as an assistant vice president for technology at Marsh & McLennan. In 2011, his family bought a crate and filled it with letters, photographs, and other special keepsakes for burial. They wrote messages on white balloons and released them at the ceremony. His mother had a hard time letting go of her balloon. Sal was 11 at the time. The young boy told his mother it was okay to let go, that his father would always be with them. He kept himself from crying that day. To be strong for my mom. Patrick and Kevin Hannaford honor their dad by helping others with their mother. They formed the Kevin J. Hannaford Senior Foundation, a charity that helps pay the tuition of children who have lost a parent in their hometown of Basking Ridge, New Jersey. The charity's main fundraising event has always been blessed with perfect weather. The running family joke, they say, is that their dad's signature on that day. The group knows loss, undoubtedly. They also know love. If they could ask their fathers one last question, what would it be? Nicole Pila immediately pipes up. Are you proud of me? I would say the same thing, adds Austin Vukosa. I would want to know if he's proud. Jessica Waring, yeah, I think I'd like to know the same thing too. Patrick Hannaford pauses. I don't know. There's a lot to ask. So I'm not sure that I'd pick. His younger brother says he'd ask, how are you? I never met him. There would be a lot. I could write a book. Caroline Tumulty Omar says she'd want to know if he was satisfied with the time he got here. I think I'd want to know, says Sal Pepe, if he had a funny memory or a funny story he could share. Juliet Scuso, I would ask if he was proud of not only me, but of my whole family, who's grown into without him there. I'd ask him to tell me some of the stories I was too young to know back then, says Kevin Parks. The last one to reveal his question is Rodney Wooden. I would ask if there were ways to remember him more, like he was proud of the way we're keeping him in our life. These children will never forget, and they don't want the world to forget either. This is part of the CNN interview.
I know you all lost parents on 9/11. How many of you lost a dad? Raise your hand. All of you. How many of you were so young you don't have a memory, like a real memory of your dad? And then how many of you will never forget? We're sitting here looking at these fountains and where those towers once were. And to anyone first, what does it feel like to come down here to Ground Zero?
It feels good. It feels like we've rebuilt. It's good that we're getting through it.
Getting through it. How many of you have looked for your dad's names? All of you. What was it like finding your dad's name?
Most people, when they lose someone, they have a grave to go to, and that brings them closer to that person. But for us, this is our parents' grave, and so it brings us closer, and it makes us feel more connected to that parent.
Do you guys agree that it feels like a grave in a sense? You're nodding. Why?
A lot of our parents' bodies weren't found after 9/11, so that could be literally where our father's bodies lay to this day, and that's it is a memorial, and it is our grave, and we can go there and we can communicate with the people we lost. That's like our safe spot with them.
Is that what you do? Do you communicate with your dad at that wall?
Yes, I talk to my dad. I put my hand on his name and talk to him and tell him everything that's going on.
Let me move on to that day. Juliet, you were 4.
Yeah.
You were 4. Your dad was a firefighter out of Queens.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find out that day?
I was with my grandfather that day. My other siblings were at school. I was in preschool at the time. He had the news on, which a 4-year-old shouldn't see. Another fireman who was retired from my dad's house had called my mother at work and said, was my dad working? And she said yes. So she left work to pick up my other siblings, and they came to pick up me. And my grandfather just had a gut feeling, and in front of all of us just said, I lost my son today. I lost my son. And my mom was actually furious at him that he had already had no hope, that he had already had that feeling that he was gone. But I, at the time, wasn't comprehending what that meant. I think it took a few months until I realized that he wasn't coming home.
Do you remember as a 4-year-old the images on the screen?
Yeah.
The smoke?
Yes, I vividly, the planes, and it's something that's very traumatizing for a child to see now later in life, that you comprehend what that actually meant at the time, because I don't think any child has the mind capacity to comprehend such a mass atrocity.
Nor should they. Nor should they. Jessica, tell me about the waiting that day.
I was starting high school. It was my second day at a brand new school. They announced on the loudspeaker that a plane had hit the Trade Center, and we had televisions in some of the rooms, so they broadcasted it. And I was surrounded by strangers, new people, and had to tell them my dad's in there. And I also had that gut feeling too.
You did?
I did.
What did that feel like?
I really had trouble like speaking to people. I couldn't. It was like a numb feeling. So I called my mom and I couldn't get through. There was a busy signal. We didn't even have call waiting. Kept calling and my aunt picked up, and that's when I knew something wasn't right, that my aunt was with my mom already, and I have 3 younger sisters. We went through all of the schools in the neighborhood and picked each of them up, and they had each heard bits and pieces of it. So it was just telling them that Dad's building was hit, a plane went into the World Trade Center. We don't know where he is.
When did you know?
I knew when I heard when we were praying on the loudspeaker, because it was a few months before that I started learning about the World Trade Center bombing in the 8th grade. And my dad got out of that. I was in kindergarten. And I remember him as a 5-year-old coming home.
Covered in soot.
In soot. So I knew, and I remember asking him and like kind of realizing that was a terrorist act and asking questions as a 13 or 14-year-old should. And specifically in the summer of '01, we talked about that. So I knew like where he was. I knew what it took him to get down over 100 flights of stairs in 1993. And it didn't look like he was getting down.
You two, the brothers, your mom was pregnant with you day of, and she was what, on the subway?
Yeah, she was under the buildings when they got hit.
She was under the buildings when they got hit.
She worked across the street.
Worked across the street, VP at her company. You obviously were in her belly. What do you remember?
I don't remember much from that time in general. I know I was in preschool that day. She tells us a story how she was, after the first building was hit, she went outside and she was kind of waiting for our dad. And then she had some sort of like pillow because she works for an aviation insurance company. So she had a pillow for when she went, like a special pillow that filtered air when you went to like a plane crash. So she was hiding under a taxi cab or something like that to make sure debris didn't fall.
You never got to meet your dad?
No.
How tough is that for you?
It's very tough, knowing that I won't have a father to grow up with. He's really stepped up to be like a very good figure to me, father figure.
He being your big bro.
Yeah, my family's really wrapped around me, and my mom. She quit her job to be home with us. And she's just done everything.
Nicole, so your dad was in one of the towers on the 86th floor, and he picked up the phone. He called, what, a local TV station?
Yeah, he wanted to reach out to families all around the country and all around the area. He tried to bring a sense of calmness to people, even though in his heart he knew that he wasn't going to make it out.
I'm stuck on the 86th floor. A fire door has trapped us. Debris has fallen around us, and part of the core of the building is blown out.
How many people are with you, Jim?
I'm with one other person, and I'm told that people are aware of this. I'm on the 86th floor on the east side of the building facing the East River.
And what time did you
get... I'm on the air. I want to tell anybody that has a family member that may be in the building that the situation is under control for the moment, and the danger has not increased. So please, all family members, take it easy.
How often do you go back and listen to his voice?
Pretty often. I like to listen to it a lot because it's the last thing I have of him speaking. It's what I remember of his voice since I was so young when I lost him. That's the last thing I remember of him.
And when you listen to it, what does his voice, his message mean for you?
It's really meaningful to me to see that in his last moments he was thinking about other people and putting them before himself.
All right, that is the CNN recording of the interview. That was the section I did not read. Today's show is dedicated to all of the victims of 9/11, victims that are still dying today, 15 years later. And I want to thank Sue from New Mexico who sent this song over. It's called We See the Light. So instead of doing our normal dedication music, I will play this clip. And I thank you for listening in. We'll be back shortly.
concrete jungles come undaunted. Another one of those glory days. The sun shines on this clear September morning, settling down to get things underway. And then this crushing sound that cries and the sobbing. I see the fear in the eyes of my friends. I knew my time on this clear September morning. I knew my time was coming to an end. And I see the light, it's shining through. I see the whole world crying and the pain you're going through. I see the sacrifice, the sorrow, and the pain and something too. I see the light I'm going through. My journey that takes to this bright sun, the shading light, its beauty so clear. Smiling faces of once departed loved ones, guiding me to a place I cannot feel. And here's to you, all you tireless heroes, trying to look up in the sky. Say a prayer to all the ones who died here. Say a prayer and never say goodbye. And we see the light, it's shining. We see the whole world crying and the pain you're going through. We see the sacrifice, the sorrow, and the pain and something too. We see the light we're going through. They see the light, it's shining. They see the whole world crying and the pain we're going through. They see the sacrifice, the sorrow, the pain and suffering too. They see the light they're going through. They see the light, it's shining through. They see the whole world crying and the pain we're going through. They see the sacrifice, the sorrow, and the pain and suffering too. They see the light they're going through. They see the light they're going through. They see the light they're going through.
All right. We see the light. That was that song. Thank you, Sue, for sending that to me. And today's show is dedicated to all the victims of 9/11. You're here listening to Southern Sense here on Blog Talk Radio, High Plains Media, SHR Media, Kinetic Hi-Fi, The Fix FM out of Charleston, South Carolina, up on iTunes, Spreaker. Oh, just the heck with it. Go to our website. It's the name of the show. Put a hyphen in the middle, southern-sense.com. I'm your hostess with the mostest, the Radio Chick, along with my co-host, author, what else can I say about you, Curtis? Curtis C.S. Bennett. A radical.
I do write columns.
A radical?
Radical Republican. Yeah.
Oh, man.
It's time to get radical.
Yep. I want to welcome everyone that's up in the chat room and listening in on the studio. We have a fantastic guest returning. I think this is her fourth or fifth visit with us in the past 2 years. So, past year? I don't know. I'm so confused. I don't know which end is up today. Let's welcome back Danae. Let's welcome back Danae.
Thank
Good
you.
afternoon. You can see we're going a little nuts today.
No worries. Excited to be here.
Oh, well, you know,
How you doing, Danae?
I gotta say it's a rather emotional weekend because it is the 15th memorial of the 9/11 attacks, and I will not call it an anniversary because it sounds like something you should be celebrating. I will say it's a 15th memorial to 9/11, and it's a tough weekend. But you know, we're going to get through it. We always have. We will survive. But your music helps inspire us, too, through this weekend. So I'm glad that you're with us today. I need a little uplifting.
Good. Well, that's what it's there for.
You know, you have a very interesting background. We've discussed it before, and some of the people that are listening in may not have heard about you before. But you started off, you're the daughter of a minister. Your father went from the United States to preach over in Moscow, brought the family with him. You moved back to Texas. You ended up going back to Moscow to study political science and Russian and became a CIA analyst. So how do you transition from that background into being a singer and songwriter?
Yeah. Well, my singing and songwriting really predates any international travel or any political science that I studied. I had always loved music, started playing piano when I was just a little girl at age 5. My mom was really diligent to get my brothers and I to do the Suzuki method, which was some sort of, technique that you taught to young children, like at 5, 6 years old. So I had always loved music, had been writing poems and been learning the guitar. And when we were over in Russia when I was a child, I also got the bug for traveling and international issues and just the diversity of the world and everything that's out there past, the borders of Iowa where I was born. So as I look back at my life and I've kind of asked those questions of how did I get from singer-songwriter to CIA analyst or back again, I really believe that all those things were kind of growing at the same time, and seeing the world through the eyes of an observer is what you have to do as a songwriter, and it's also what you have to do as an analyst, whether that's at the CIA or at the Wall Street Journal. So to me, as I look back, the pieces don't seem so isolated or inconsistent now that I'm kind of having a little bit of time. I've been out of my job for 3 years. I resigned about 3 years ago, and hindsight's 2020. And I'm starting to see how those pieces kind of intersect and why they make sense and why each of those different roles that I played over the years used different parts of my desire to observe the world and understand it for what it really is and share that learning with other people, sometimes through a written paper and sometimes through a song.
Well, I happen to love your music because each song you do is different. You get a lot of artists that use the same technique and same style over and over and over again, so that when you start playing one song on their album, the whole album sounds like the same song being played over and over again, just different words. But you have a collaboration of people that help you with this. One of them, and I'm probably going to mispronounce his name, but Phil Danae of Secret Road. And he's helped you for a long time.
Yeah, Phil actually, he's an independent writer. Another producer that I work with, AG, she's with Secret Road. But Phil and I met about 9 years ago, I think, maybe 8, something like that. Right after I moved to D.C., he was on tour, and we met through some mutual friends and just connected and shared a passion for music and stayed in touch. And man, we did our first song together, I guess it would have been back in 2008, maybe. So it's been a little while that we've been creating and just learning about how the music industry works. So yeah, I'm grateful for his longtime friendship and collaboration.
Well, your debut album came out July 1st. We had you on just before it got released, and we were playing some of your music. You're on tour now, I'm assuming, because you're calling from a strange phone number, which I didn't recognize. So you're doing a tour now? I
have been out playing songs and doing different shows. I'm not on like a broad nationwide tour yet. We're in the process of booking that. So if anybody loves the music and wants to reach out, we're currently reaching out to colleges and different types of city centers to be booking events for spring of 2017. So it's a very one-on-one activity right now. We're making a lot of connections, and so I'm currently working actually on new music that'll come out next year, because you always start writing for the next project right after you've released the current one. So I'm in Nashville booking for the spring and working on new songs.
Yeah. So it's funny because this is September. Next year is just only a couple of months away.
I know. It's around the corner. Hey, Curtis.
Danae, George Harrison of the Beatles traveled to India once, and it greatly impacted him and influenced his music from that point on. Now, you've been to Russia. I was just curious if the music scene over there had any influence on your music.
That's a good question. When I was younger, like when I lived there the first time as a little kid, 6 to 11, I remember hearing the Russian music and it being on the radio and it being around, but there's kind of two different styles of music that I was exposed to when we lived there. One was kind of the classical Russian folk music that has a lot of unusual instruments, kind of tells their folk stories a similar way to the Americana does in the U.S., and that was kind of one. And then the other scene that's really huge in Russia still today, and when I was a little kid, I remember it clearly, was the techno scene and kind of these techno clubs. Every Russian high school would have like dance nights, and the way that the communist kind of city was laid out, you have these little pockets of kind of boroughs like New York, but all over this huge area, and each spot would have dance nights with techno music, just plain beats. So I remember hearing those different types of music and kind of being around that, but I haven't listened to Russian music or kind of what's coming out of Russia that much over the past 5 to 10 years as I've been creating this new body of work. But I think whenever you're around and soaking up music from another culture and just the other culture in general, you start having sensitivities to the differences in the world and the differences in tones and people and all of that. So I think it influenced me, even if just on a more subconscious level.
Well, the name of your album that just came out is called Direction, and I want to play the title cut from that. So let's sit back and listen to Direction by Danae. Oh, gotta turn on.
Awesome.
Feet on the edge, take a deep breath, set for a free fall. The time is now, take a first step, off of the back wall. Running like a blind man to a lover's call. Come on, let me see your face, feel your head on. Finally know what it feels like, starting to take off. You got a new direction. You got a new direction. Flying through space past stars and moons, looking for a place to bust through. You got a new direction. Head in the clouds, take a good look. Don't even try to run. Soak up the heights, open your eyes. Don't miss the gold dawn. Come and set your bright star on the skyline. Open up your heart, wider than wide. Finally know what it feels like, starting to take off. You got a new direction. You
love that song. I'm sitting here, I was like bopping in the seat. But it's a perfect song for this weekend because we do have a new direction. We don't have to wallow in the past. We can just keep on moving forward, and we've got a new direction coming up with the upcoming election. And so I think that song is just perfect for today.
I love it. Totally. We should get it on a commercial somewhere.
Hey, can we have Donald Trump take it as one of his theme songs?
Well, if the price is right.
Call me, Donald.
Yeah.
But if people go to your website, they can get this album, which is your name, Danae.co, if I can get my teeth in straight, I can't even spell your name. Why can't I say DANAE.co? But when they get the album, they get a bonus on this because Direction is on there not once but twice. The second one is just an acoustical version of this.
Yeah, I really wanted to have an acoustic version of one of the songs. I just think it helps people connect with a song in different ways. And so if you like the upbeat version and you get a chance to hear it at a different tempo with a different arrangement, you kind of get this fresh experience with the same song that you've already connected to. So I'm really excited that that's on there and have had some wonderful feedback on it as a track.
Now, my question is, what is harder to do, to write the lyrics or to get the music to go with the lyrics?
Oh, man. There's such different parts of the process. Lyric writing, to me, it's something that an idea ruminates and it grows over time. It's often I'll start with a concept. I'll be thinking about just looking at the world and observing it, and I'll write down titles or ideas or topics that I want to explore in a song. So it often kind of gets spread out. The creative work gets spread out over a much wider space, over a lot, broader period of time. Whereas the track and making the music, especially with these songs, they're done in collaboration. So we're in a room together for, 3 hours or maybe multiple 3-hour sessions working on the music and the melody and all of those facets. And then there's a whole nother round of work where the producer goes in and starts building all of the layers that you hear and the beats and the electric lead lines and the bass and stuff. So it's an incredible amount of time that is spent on these songs, which is exciting, but also not for the faint of heart, indeed.
Go ahead.
Danae, the music always comes first with you, or sometimes the words, and then you add the music? Let's see what comes first, the chicken or the egg.
Yeah, right. We never know, do we? It really depends. For Prove, the title came. I had this concept of wanting to write a song about having nothing to prove because you feel so known and loved and confident in whatever relationship or experience you're having. So that really started as a concept with a title, and then the music came second.
And the lyrics.
And the lyrics, I guess for Direction, we had a melody that we loved, and we had the title, but the lyrics really came last with Direction. We really worked on the melody, the rhythmic elements of the melody, and then changed the lyrics as we went along to make sure that they supported what was happening in the melody.
Now, my question is, do you put the music together first and then you sing on top, or how do you do this? Because you're saying it's done all in layers, and I'm trying to figure out, as someone that loves to sing, not well, but I do, but I have to have the music going in the background in order to fit my voice to it.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, like all things in life, it depends. I can pick Actualize. We'll use that as the example. So Phil and I wrote that together in LA just over a piano, just one piano part that he was playing, and we wrote the melody and the lyric. And then he kind of went off into his creative land for a few months and worked on the track and the music of it, and then sent me a new version that was probably about halfway to where we ended up sonically. And then I, at my house here in Nashville, spent a couple of days recording all of the different vocal layers and harmonies and oohs and little accent things that happen in that song. And then I sent all of that back to Phil, and he kind of polished and shined that, and then he integrated it into his track and then built that further until we got it to a spot where we felt like it was done.
Boy, recording has changed so much over the years. It used to be you took the whole group into the studio with the singer, and then everything was laid all at one time. But now with the electronics and with telecommunications, things can be done, and it's so mind-boggling, the abilities that we have here. And geez, it's amazing.
It really is, yeah. Yeah, and especially in this kind of indie pop space, that type of a workflow is pretty common. But if you come to Nashville, I have a lot of friends who still do the more traditional rent a studio for a day, get 5, 6 amazing musicians, and all of those musicians know the 5 songs that are going to get recorded, and you just knock it out, and you kind of, maybe you spend $5,000, $6,000 to run a day like that, but all of the music is then finished, and it's just a matter of finalizing how all the pieces fit together in the mixing process. But that's still alive and well as a workflow. It's just with the work that I've been doing and the producers kind of being all over the place, we've had to go for a more long-distance option.
So how long does it take to put an album like this together?
Oh, man.
You thought you were going to get softball today, huh?
I know, right? Well, I mean, it depends. So for this particular project, the first writing session for Direction as a song happened in early 2014. So it took about 2.5 years. Obviously, I wasn't working on that full time during that whole period of time. I had a lot of other creative projects that I was kind of a part of, and I did some touring in Europe for a month and had other tours and stuff that was happening. So it wasn't focused for 2 years on these 4 songs, but that was kind of the timeline that it took to work on them and take them to the finish line and then plan the release and get the distribution team together. And so I don't think that's it's probably longer than some people would spend and less than others. So,
well, it's an amazing album. Go ahead, Curtis.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
I was curious, in today's market, with the technology we have, are artists still using CDs a lot, or they use mainly like streaming?
As a distribution tool?
Mm-hmm. Are most of your songs put out on CDs, or most of it streamed from like the site?
I didn't even press hard copies of Direction. I decided that for now, because it's the debut EP and we're really trying to just get people to know about the music, that having hard copies and investing the financial resources in that infrastructure until we start touring really in spring of 2017 wasn't the wisest move. So this project is only available streaming and on iTunes, and that was, a choice for kind of where it is as its debut essence. But I would say that CD sales and merch at shows is really the place that artists are making their living still. It's a huge part of being able to continue to be an artist is if your fans really support you and, buy those hard copy records and whatever merch is available, necklaces or T-shirt or whatever other creative things are being, created for the fans. So it's definitely, none of my community that I'm a part of who are artists see the record sale as over, because if we're touring, that's really a place that our fans get to support us in an intentional way.
Well, it's hard to get an autograph on an iTunes,
Right? Totally. You as my PR lady telling the world that. I'm going to quote it. I'll be like, it's hard to get an autograph on an MP3 file, so you better buy the record.
So that way they have to go to your website.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, as you know, most of the people that listen to the show listen to the podcast later on, the MP3 file. But if they go to the description...
Yeah, that's true.
But if they go to the description, they can click on the link and go directly to your website and check you out on Facebook and on Instagram and Twitter. The links are all there. So there is gold in that dust there. That's it.
Oh, nice. I see what you did there.
See? I should be a PR person. All right. Well, this is Danae's Gold in the Dust. Let me click on this and get the board up.
Up the dust in the air.
us, check out her website, which is her name, and I'll try to say it straight this time, DANAE.co. Check out her website. Danae, what I love about that song, you start off and you've got that steady beat. It's like you can actually feel the shovels being swung. You can feel the pickaxes. You can feel that steady beat. It also, when I first heard it, it reminded me almost of a steel mill when you watch those guys hammering away at the steel. You know, and then you shift away from that hard beat into something that's soft and graceful. That I find beautiful.
I love that. Yeah, that's definitely what we were trying to go for, that consistent, just you're experiencing, the kick of the drum is happening just on the same beat every single time, and kind of has that driving forward feel to it, that sludging, through the mire, and just trying to communicate that, but ending with a more spacey, kind of lifted experience that takes you somewhere. The song is a journey.
Mm-hmm. It is.
And we have. I feel like I'm listening to something that's very soothing every time I listen to your music. I really wish I could get some of your songs to Matt Lauer, because that guy needs it. He got beat up the other day interviewing Hillary. He could use some peace of mind music.
Hey, feel free to send him a streaming link. He doesn't even need to buy it, okay?
We're down to our last few minutes, because I know you do have to run. And the reason why you're here is because you've just released a new song called Actualized. And the last time I was here, your agent was saying, don't play that one yet. But we get a chance to play that one today. So tell us about Actualized.
Awesome.
Tell us about that song before we play it.
Yeah, well, that's one of the two songs that I did with my friend Phil Daniel. And it's really a song that it sounds at first maybe like a sexy love song, but if you take a minute to kind of dive into the lyrics, especially in the verses, it's a lot about this concept of waking up, of finally coming alive, and of seeing just the world around you and the beauty in it and your own mendedness, and just having this experience of kind of a heavenly experience with peace and beauty. So that's really the heart of the song, and the music was created to support that.
Well, what I love is we're playing it on this Memorial weekend, so that we want to give everyone else here in the United States hope that we don't have to bow down to the terrorists. There is beauty out there, and we will strive for it if we keep hope in our heart, God's love in our heart, that we will be a better people, a better nation. How does that sound?
I like it. That's good.
All right. So this is Danae's song, Actualized. And Danae, I want to thank you for being with us. I'm telling everyone to go to your website, Danae.co, and get your music. Download it today. And let's sit back and enjoy it.
One day in the wilderness I woke up, surrounded and covered by buckets of new blooms of mended love, sweeter than honey, dancing technicolor, shot from your projector, spin my whole world around. So high I can see your eyes. I'm lost in love, never say goodbye. Closer than skin to each other. Love couldn't get any deeper. I feel your heartbeat now with actualized. Running in a forest that's evergreen, rivers are laughing, hoping for the moment we cut the seams, and my blind heart snaps open. Dancing technicolor, shot from your projector, spin the whole world around. Oh, fly so high I can see your eyes. Lost in love, never say goodbye. Closer than skin to each other. This love couldn't get any deeper. Feel your heartbeat now with actual life. Come on, dancing technicolor, shot from your projector, spin your whole world around. I fly so high I can see your eyes. Lost in love, let's say goodbye. Closer than skin to each other. This love couldn't get any deeper. Feel your heartbeat now that we're actualized. Feel your heartbeat now that there's no goodbyes. Feel your heartbeat now we're actualized.
All right, Actualized by Danae. Danae, we have someone in the chat room says she's already going to go get your CD. She's going to download it. See, we already got a fan for you there.
Awesome.
One down, just another million or so to go.
One down, girl. I appreciate it. Every person that counts. Tell her to give me your email. I'll send her a handwritten note for sure.
Kel, you hear that? Kel, she's listening in. Make sure you send Danae a message.
So
or email.
nice.
So
Yes, please do.
yeah, go to the website, Danae.co. Danae, I'm looking forward to your new release next year. You definitely have to make sure I get a copy of it, and you've got to come on and promo those songs as soon as you got them.
For sure, yeah. I think we're going to be releasing singles for a few months and then shoot towards a collection of them later in the year. So once we have the first track ready to go, I'll be sure to reach out and we'll get a convo on the books.
Absolutely. Well, God bless Danae. You do absolutely beautiful work. I want to hear more of it as soon as you got it.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you both. Thank you, Curtis.
Well, you have a
Let me know when you're in Florida. Okay?
See
what
that?
did you say?
He wants to know when you head to Florida.
Yeah.
Are you in Florida, Curtis?
Yeah, he's in Florida.
Yep.
I'm in South Carolina. Yep. The wonders of electronics.
All right. Oh, nice. Okay. Well, I like to say I go where the call is. So, if you book a Danae show, we'll make it happen, and I'll bring the band down, and we'll throw a party.
Okay, I'll look into that.
Thank you for joining us today, and you have a great, blessed day.
Awesome. I appreciate you guys. Have a great day. Bye.
Right. All right. Check out her website. It's her name, DANAE.co. Check it out. We've got our next guest up. And if I can get my voice back into gear here, it's Pastor Michael Gonzalez. Good afternoon, Michael.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine. And I just put your name in my switchboard. I put a lot of Z's on it.
That's good.
Oh, man. All right. You're a pastor of a outreach church here in South Carolina, but you've also started a new website called The Alliance. Tell us about that.
Yeah, actually, the website is buildingthealliance.com, buildingthealliance.com. The name The Alliance actually came from the fact we were the South Carolina Pastors Alliance. And that started back probably about 5 years ago. Dr. Kevin Baird was the director of that, and he was one of the pastors out of Charleston. And, I just had a good meeting with him, connected with him, and from there we began, to work together, trying to get pastors to engage the culture. And that wasn't happening really a whole lot. It's still not happening. But we really felt strongly that we needed to really try to get the pastors involved. We were seeing that the governmental, areas, the governmental arena is a place where the church has been absent. And honestly, the pulpits have been silent across America concerning the issues of the day, which really the Bible speaks to all the issues. And so we've been trying to get pastors to engage. And probably about a year and a half ago, Kevin moved to Indiana, and he handed over the alliance to me as a pastor's alliance. And I really felt that the Lord was telling me that we needed to expand this, not just for pastors, but that all Christians could be a part of the alliance. And, get as many Christians as we could to engage the culture. And especially this area, the governmental institution. And so that's how really the alliance has come to be, and it is growing exponentially all across the state of South Carolina. And that's kind of the origins of it.
Well, I signed up on your website last night. So, yeah.
Well, excellent. I appreciate that. That's good. It's good. No. Yeah, Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, when I was going through your website, it brought me back to our founding fathers, because we had the black-robed regiment. I don't know why I cannot speak today. The teeth are just put in backwards, I think. But we had the black-robed regiment that from the pulpit helped fan the flames of liberty and our revolution. But today's pastors are afraid to speak from the pulpit. Very few do. Matter of fact, we had a pastor here in my local church when the Supreme Court came out with that same-sex marriage ruling where they legislated instead of adjudicated. He spoke out against it in the pulpit. The next time he got up to preach, he apologized. That angered me. I was proud of him speaking out on a social issue such as that, something that's very fundamental to our religion. And then having him take his words back the following week, I'm not willing to bet it probably was one parishioner that complained. Because when we left, everyone was complimenting him, thanking him for speaking out. But then to apologize the next time he got up there, that's not right.
No, it's not right, and it's unfortunate, but this is something that we run into all of the time, and that is we have pastors behind pulpits that either are more concerned with their status, or their position, or literally their jobs. There's a lot of pastors that are unwilling to speak on these issues because they consider them to be political, and it's going to divide the congregation. And and then the deacon board might call them into a meeting, and they might fire them. And there's all kinds of reasons. But at the end of the day, the pastor needs to decide: am I called of God? Am I a servant of God? The Apostle Paul said in the book of Galatians, the letter to the Galatian church, he said, if I try to please men, I cease to be a servant of Christ. And so, you have to choose. Are you going to be a servant of Christ, or are you going to be a man pleaser? And this is something we often have to challenge pastors on. But the alliance was really birthed out of the reality that, it was our founding fathers and many pastors of the day, as you've already said with the Black Robe Regiment, who took leadership in our nation, spoke on the issues. As a matter of fact, a lot of the political things that happened early on in our nation were led by pastors. And so it's an amazing thing that we have allowed for many things to happen. Obviously, when the scriptures were taken out of public school and prayer was taken out of public school, and in 1954 we had the Johnson Amendment, which really brought this to the forefront, where now the IRS was going to sanction, non-profit organizations to be able to speak on political issues, and it really has silenced the pulpit. But the truth is that the IRS can do nothing to churches. They can absolutely do nothing. They are nothing but a paper tiger. And so we often encourage pastors, letting them know all of the legal areas they can go into, speak politically from the pulpit in the sense of, being able to speak on the issues without apologizing, without having any fear or concern that the IRS is going to do anything. As a matter of fact, years ago, I joined the Alliance Defending Freedom, which is a group of lawyers, who are Christians who defend all of our religious liberties. They do a great job of it. But I spoke on behalf of their organization on this thing called, the Pulpit Freedom Sunday. And on Pulpit Freedom Sunday, pastors speak boldly from the pulpit. And I shared with my church that they should not vote for Barack Obama because he was disqualified spiritually according to the Scriptures. And I even sent in my sermon to the IRS. And I sent them everything, my notes, my sermon notes. I've never heard from the IRS on that sermon. So it just goes to show you, even when you call out people by name, the IRS is not going to do anything.
No,
but truly, we need to. Yeah, they're not going to do anything.
No, I was going to say the same thing, because there are several pastors that are following what you're saying, and they're speaking out from the pulpit, daring the IRS to go after them. And nothing has happened, because they know the second that the IRS does try to go after them, the IRS will cease to exist. They'll
that's
eviscerate
right.
them.
Yep, that's true. And so we're encouraging pastors, but what we've done with the Alliance, and I'm very excited about this, is we have broken the Alliance down into 6 divisions. These divisions are the pastoral division. We have an education, a business, an arts and media. We have faith and family, and law and policy. Those are the 6 divisions. Why those divisions? Well, we thought through it. How can it encompass all, of society? We want all Christians to be involved in the Alliance. And so those areas kind of cover all of society. The purpose of the Alliance is to network a group of Christians across the state of South Carolina, and it's happening, who will engage the culture, first of all, with the gospel, intentionally with the gospel, because the gospel is the only thing that can transform the heart of man. Not legislation, not a legislator, not a presidential nominee. No one can change America but Jesus Christ. And I believe that it is the church's responsibility to bring the gospel into all the facets of society. Let me explain myself if I can, Ann. God instituted 3 different areas. We see them clearly in Scripture. Number 1, he instituted, the family. Secondly, he instituted the church. And thirdly, according to Romans 13, he instituted the government. And God expects us to disciple or to bring, the gospel to the family. He expects us also to bring the gospel to the church. But thirdly, he expects us to bring the gospel to the government. That means that the government needs to understand, and those who serve government need to understand that it is the Creator who they serve. As a matter of fact, in Romans 13, it says these words, that those who serve in government are ministers of God. They're servants. Diakonia is the Greek word, meaning servants of God. And the church has neglected the governmental area for so long that we've not brought truly the gospel there, and we've not held those in government accountable to the standard of God's word and righteousness. Now, the Bible says righteousness exalts the nation. Sin is a disgrace to any people. In Proverbs 29:2, for example, it says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. When the wicked are in authority, the people groan. So it's clear that God's will is for righteous people to be in authority in this governmental area. But we have allowed for the wicked and those who do not know God to be the ones who run for office, who are in office. And so look, at the end of the day, their values are going to win because they're the ones who are leading the nation. And so this is the the vacuum that we're seeing in our government area is the fact that Christians are not running for public government or service, and so somebody's going to fill that vacuum. And the intention of the Alliance then is to bring the gospel intentionally to every facet of society. That's why we've broken it down in 6 divisions. And we believe if we intentionally bring the gospel, train people and equip people how to share the gospel, how to have a Christian worldview. Also train them up in apologetics, how to defend the faith. If we can train and equip Christians across the state of South Carolina, that's what the Alliance wants to do, then I believe we're going to see transformation in this government sector as well. We're going to see righteous people running for government. We're already seeing it. And if the righteous are in authority, as the Bible says, the people will rejoice.
Well, you know, it's funny because they come up with the idea of separation of church and state. That is not in the Constitution. In fact, what is in the Constitution is the defense of faith by saying the government cannot prohibit or infringe upon our faith. They cannot stop us from saying prayer in public. They cannot stop us from having our children take the Bible to school or to bow their head over a meal before they eat. You know, but we see this constantly, and we allow it to happen, and we're not outraged over it. You know, if I want to turn around, go out in public wearing a Christian T-shirt or my crucifix, I have every right to say and do and exhibit my faith in public. But however, we have to make room for special washing areas for Muslims to wash their feet and special prayer areas so they can do their prayers 5 times a day. But I cannot say the Our Father in public. I cannot bow over my meal in public and say a prayer. Why is it lopsided? Why are we allowing this hypocrisy?
Well, and that's the thing that outrages us, and it really honestly amazes us, is the fact that we've allowed it. I mean, as the church, those of us who are Christians, we've allowed it. But again, just going back to what I was saying, if Christians are not engaged in their governments, if Christians are not engaged, in their city councils, what's going on in the community, then Christians are just not engaged and they're not in tune to what's happening. And so if you give up that space, if you don't run with the values that you have, other people are going to run. For example, we have a president who everything is about Muslims. Everything, he props them up. He builds them up. As you know, he went into office the first 4 years saying that he was for traditional marriage, and then he changed his mind that he evolved into this idea of now he believes in same-sex marriage. So we're seeing these kinds of things happening, and the people who are leading our nation, the people who have the ability to make decisions in government, are people who do not have your values in mind. And that is why we have to get Christians running for public office. We have to get people who have a righteous standard to do that, because righteousness is the only thing that will exalt the nation. And I mean, if we don't do this, we're going to continue to lose, and we're going to continue to lose our religious liberties, because the progressive left doesn't care about our Christian liberties. I can tell you that. All they care about is pushing their agenda, and their agenda is a godless agenda. It's the LGBT, agenda. That's their agenda. They're going to push it, and we've allowed it to happen, and now we're dealing with it.
But you see, you've got. I just wanted to ask this one question, Curtis. We see these two dipolar areas. You've got the LGBT community and you've got Islam, which you got a group of Muslims saying, "Oh, we support the LGBT community." But if anyone has read the Quran and anyone that has followed the truth about Islam, they throw the LGBT community off the roof. They burn them. They cut their heads off. They think the LGBT community is an abomination. So how they can support two diametrically opposed ideals, it just blows my mind.
Well, but see, that's part of the deception. And, as Michael Savage has once said, liberalism is a mental disorder. I mean, when you get to the point where you're pushing, the liberal progressivism, you're pushing a mindset that really doesn't have order or sense to it. And so this idea that Islam is going to come into the picture, well, Islam, obviously for many in our government is trying to be separated, the moderates and the radicals. That's why you hear radical Islam, because they say, well, not all Muslims are that way. But the reality of it is that it is the radical Islamic movement that is the true Islam. That is Islam. And this idea that we're separating those two is really a farce, because I've studied it out and I know it to be true. But that's part of the deception, Ann. That's part of the deception that we're seeing in America. But it's amazing to me that only 3% of the population is LGBT. But the problem is that we have over 40% who are tolerant of their views, and so they really don't care. And this is why we're seeing a lot of this legislation that's passing, the attacks on Christianity, because Christianity is the only thing that stands opposed to that kind of lifestyle. Even though we don't do anything hateful, we love our neighbor. I mean, if you're homosexual, we're not going to do anything wrong to you. We're going to pray for you. We're going to love you. We're going to tell you the truth concerning that sin, as it would be an adulterer, a fornicator, anything else. But we don't do anything to harm you or to try to seek to do your harm. We love you. And but at the same time, they see Christianity as an attack on their personal, their personal lifestyle and choices. And so they want us to approve of it as an alternative lifestyle. We're not going to do that. You can if you're a true Christian.
Well, go ahead, Curtis.
They will label you a bigot. They will label you a bigot and homophobic. But anyway, what I wanted to say was that I want to commend you for having the courage to come out and speak to your congregation about the truth, especially those things of a political nature. I believe pastors are leaders. Not only that, they're moral leaders, and they should have the courage to speak the truth and not be afraid of government. And I think they should take their cue from the story of David and Goliath,
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Well, I fully agree with you. I see that, again, pastors, are called by God, and actually all Christians are called by God to stand with the Lord and, to stand for truth. We're not to compromise that in any way. But again, Jesus made it clear in John chapter 10 that there are those who are true shepherds, and then there are those that are hirelings. And I don't mean this to try to attack any pastor, but there are many pastors in America that are just hirelings. They've not been called of God. They're not true shepherds of God. And if they were, they would stand for truth and righteousness, always with the attitude of love, because everything comes from God is love, because God is love. But we must stand on truth and righteousness. And if you don't, and you would rather keep your job, or you would, if you'd rather make somebody happy in your congregation, you're not being a servant of Christ. And so I fully agree with you. We need a revolution of pastors. We need a revival, of those in the pulpit who will stand up and teach and lead their congregations. Listen, all across our state, I run into this all the time. People that go to churches say to me, gosh, I wish my pastor was like you. I wish that our congregation was engaging the culture like your church is engaging the culture. And I often say to them, well, go speak to your pastor, challenge him and say, Pastor, we need to do something here. But then I say to them, but if your pastor in your church is unwilling, find another church. Find you a place that you can walk together with the leadership of your church to truly transform the culture in your community. If not, you're just going to be in a church that you're hearing stuff from the pulpit that's not addressing the real ills of the day. And obviously, we believe the gospel, again, is the answer. It says in Romans 1:17 that God reveals his righteousness through the gospel. And if we're not sharing the gospel intentionally, going into the communities, going into the prisons, going into your workplace, and intentionally living out and sharing the gospel with the people at your job, wherever you are, your schools, then, it's not going to change. The community's not going to change.
No,
Your state governments are not going to change. Yeah.
That is absolutely true because, I was raised Roman Catholic. Worse, an Italian Roman Catholic. And I saw I taught Sunday school. But I saw the path that the church was going down. I saw its liberal leanings. And I didn't lose faith. I just lost faith in the Catholic Church. And for a long time, I didn't go anywhere. And then one morning, my husband and I woke up and we said, let's go back to church. And we tried again to go to the Catholic Church. And I'm telling you, I was so disappointed. I didn't I didn't even feel the spirit, you know. So we went and we ended up, another local church, happens to be Anglican. We went into there. The difference was like night and day. And the church I do does the very thing. So I don't know if my parish happens to be one of the ones that signed up with you, but we just got a new rector, and I'm going to find out from him whether or not he's part of this alliance and try to get him on board, because they do the very same things. They do have those ministries that go out there to the prisons, that reach out to the community. Matter of fact, we've got a parish fair coming up in November, which I'm doing the public relations for, but it's an outreach to the entire community. So besides having all the games and the food and the fun, they're going to have little booths of ministry, whether it's the Boy Scouts, whether it's Kairos, whether it's this Stephen ministry. They will have all those little booths out there to preach the ministry to the community. So, yeah, there are churches that are doing what you're doing.
Well, that's exactly right. There are. And you know, I don't want to say we don't have any. We certainly have a remnant. Churches in South Carolina that are doing exactly what we're talking about. And really, the Alliance is not here to replace any church. I am a pastor of a local church. I'm senior pastor, my church. So I'm not trying to replace the church. Jesus chose the church to go into the world and make disciples. He said, go make disciples of all nations. And so, I'm not trying to replace the church, but what we're saying and what we're doing as the Alliance is networking Christians across our state, because so many churches are not engaged in the culture and are certainly not going to the government. They look at the State House there in Columbia and they say, that's government, that's politics, and we're the church. And like you said, that's separation of church and state. Separation of church and state is a myth. It doesn't even exist. And the only thing, Thomas Jefferson wrote in that letter to the Danbury Baptists was concerning the infringement of government into the church, not the other way around. And so, these pastors either have to decide to believe and to know the truth concerning that and to do something about this and to come alongside and join the Alliance, so that when I go up to the State House and I speak to the legislators and I speak to the governor and I speak to the Attorney General, which I recently was in his office, I can say to Alan Wilson, Alan, we have over 500, 600 churches in the Alliance, and we are saying to you that you are going the wrong direction, or you're making the wrong decision here, and you need to think through this, because God is, holding you accountable to this truth. And, like, for example, I was recently in his office. I was speaking with the Attorney General concerning the same-sex marriage decision. Right before that decision was made in June, I asked him in his office, I said, what will you do, and what is the position of the Attorney General's office? What are you going to do? Because the governor and him had come out earlier and said they were going to take a stand against it. Well, the minute that decision was made from SCOTUS, you didn't hear anything out of the Attorney General's office or the governor's office. I mean, not a peep, not one word. And so immediately I was on my phone calling them and saying, where's the response to this? This is an unconstitutional ruling. It has no merit. Only Congress can make laws, not, the judicial. And we're going back and forth, and there was nothing from the Attorney General nor the governor's office. And the reason for this is because now we have to go along with, that decision from SCOTUS because of the supremacy clause, which, again, is taken out of its context. That is not true. But, again, where are these righteous leaders, and who's holding them accountable? And this is what I'm asking for pastors to come alongside with me and to hold these people accountable to the choices that they're making and the decisions that they're making. And unfortunately, a lot of times they're making it based on, the fact that they're going to run for governor next term, or because of money, or because of somebody in their back pocket. We need righteous people in government, and we need people that are making those who are in government accountable to all of their decisions.
Yeah. I'm surprised with Alan Wilson, because I know him. I know him and his dad. Joe Wilson used to be my representative. And
absolutely, know them well.
I was at the state convention, and we were chatting for a while. So I'm surprised Alan Wilson is not speaking up. And this is what really gets me angry about the demand for same-sex marriage. Marriage, in its definition, is a religious right. by law,
Yes.
we already have a provision for same-sex union. It's called a domestic union or a civil union, depending upon what the state law is. So it's up to the state to decide whether or not they recognize a domestic union of same-sex couples. But do not define marriage, because once you do that, you define a religious right. You define a religious right, you now define what that religion is, and you can mandate what rights that religion can or cannot perform. Therefore, government becomes in control of religion, and no one is using that argument.
Yeah, well, well, I'm using it, Ann. I can guarantee you that you just made the case right now, and this is something that many pastors are failing to make that argument as well. Even Christians. But you're absolutely right. God instituted marriage. He defined marriage, not the state. It's the other way around. God defined the state. God made the state. And so these are the kinds of things that we're also, as the Alliance, we're trying to teach and equip as many Christians as we can in a Christian worldview, so they understand who and what and how to make the argument. Because that's another thing, too. Unfortunately, many Christians don't know how to make the argument. They don't know how to engage those who work in the state house and legislation, and how to deal with that from that Christian worldview, and understanding that it is God who established government, and not the other way around. And He's the one who established marriage. So, now I'm hearing pastors say to me, "Well, I think what I'm going to do is that I'm just, I'm not going to sign, any government documents concerning marriage, and I'll just marry them by the church and not the state." But to me, that is almost backing up. See, and it just seems to me like we're always retreating. No, as a pastor, I am an official of the state, but I am first an official of God. In other words, I serve, the Lord. But marriage can only be defined by the one who made marriage, and that's the point that you're making. And so, what we're doing is we're bringing it, into a governmental phase that's confusing people. And it's also one of these things that is causing great detriment to society. As you know, all the studies have been done that where there's not a mother and a father together, children are going to suffer. And also the studies have been done that where it's a homosexual couple who is raising a child, there's great confusion and great detriment to that child. And these are arguments that are not being made only by people like the Family Research Council and others who are making the argument, but by most Christians, the argument is not being made.
Now, we've done several shows in reference to this with the LGBT community and the myths behind the community and transgenderism and everything else. And they have the highest rate of drug addiction, suicide attempts, especially in the transgender community, because there's sex change regret. We've done whole entire shows on that. And Curtis, we got a caller coming in, so let's bring in this caller. If the switchboard will behave. Area code 678. You're on the air live with Southern Sense. I'm your hostess Annie with my co-host Curtis C.S. Bennett, and our guest is Mike Gonzalez. And the caller dropped off. So Curtis, go ahead with your thought.
Pastor Mike, do you think we on the right protest enough? I mean, this is an important election coming up, and I thought I would see more rallies, especially in light of the fact that we got Supreme Court justices that will be replaced in the next, administration, and I just don't see, the fervor there like it was when the Tea Party rose to prominence.
Curtis, I think that's a great question, and I'm going to be, because I'm not one who is going to hold back truth or where I stand personally. I want you to know that there is a segment of the Christian community, and I'm one of them, who has a very deep issue voting for Donald Trump. And it's based on principle. It's based on qualification. It's based on the fact that he has, as an individual, slandered other people and has continued to do so, and has not taken those words back. He's not apologized, not even privately or openly publicly, which would be, the standard that I would want to see happen. And so here's where my convictions are, and then I'm going to get back to your question. But my convictions on this is this. We have continued to raise generation after generation based on the lesser of two evils approach. And what we're doing is we're raising generations of people who don't really hold to a standard of righteousness and truth. We're just raising people who say, well, it's not my choice, not my best choice, but, it's a choice we have. And I think what we need to see is a reformation, a revival in that where, things truly change, where we really begin to uphold the standard. And so there are some issues there that I think, for example, one of the reasons, again, that I'm not going to vote for Donald Trump is because I see that his words that he has used, he has not, again, apologized for that. Well, why is that important to me as a pastor, as a Christian leader? Because words matter. Jesus said that we're going to be judged on every idle word. I mean, imagine that. And so if I don't uphold the standard of the Lord, then, who's going to do that? So, I feel like I need to do that and stand firm. Now, if he would come out and apologize and say, these are the things that I said, and I take those things back, and then, possibly I could vote for him. And I understand voting and endorsements are two different things. And I understand that there are people, even in my alliance, and I want to say that, there are good friends of mine that are voting for Donald Trump, and I respect that. I have no problems with that, for them to vote for him. But I also ask them to also respect my decision. And that is that, I'm going off of the principle because I want to see generations that are raised up that are upholding a righteous standard. And we're never going to see that if we continue to vote in people who are not truly upholding those standards. And I'm not looking for perfection. I'm just looking for someone who's genuine, who is true to his word, who doesn't just stand up and lie. Who conducts themselves as what they say they are. He says he's a Christian, then he should conduct himself as a Christian. And so, anyway, getting back to this, I think there's that disconnect in this election, and that is, because, I'm always asked the question, what about judges? What about the judges? You know what Hillary Clinton's going to do? Well, obviously, I know what Hillary Clinton's going to do. I'm not really too sure what Donald Trump is going to do. And honestly, when you look back at all of the judges that have been appointed by Republican presidents, we don't have a good track record. We don't have a good track record when it comes to conservative values. So trying to put our hope or our confidence in judges, or that Donald Trump is going to, he's going to nominate certain judges that are going to be the answer for America to keep us from going in the ditch. I think we're already in the ditch. And I think, honestly, judgment is already upon this nation.
Well,
and what it's going to take is right. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I want to ask you if you can look at it from this point of view, because I'm a Tea Party leader. I've had people ask me about this, and I said, well, what are your choices? If you do not vote for Donald Trump and you vote for a third-party candidate, you are taking a vote that could put a Republican back into the White House away. And you're voting for a candidate has no chance of ever succeeding. And by doing that, you are now giving Hillary Clinton a vote and ensuring her that she ascends to the White House. So, we know, as you're complaining about the devil we have, if we have him, it's the first step to start putting conservatism back into work here in the United States. So he's not the best candidate, but we can then, through our voices, help control the path he walks on. And if we do that, in 4 more years, we can come up with a candidate that is stronger, better, and a choice that we can all stand solidly behind. But we need to take that baby step first. Unless we start to take back this country, we will forever lose it. And I would rather take that baby step, and whenever he starts to misstep, the media is going to cry out, we are going to cry out, and we can rein him in. There are fail-safes behind that we can use, but we got to take that baby step. We can't hand another 4 years or 8 years over to the progressive agenda, which is a non-vote or a write-in vote would do.
Well, Ann, let me, if I can, address that. And look, I perfectly, understand everything you just said, and I agree to a certain extent that is the pragmatic way of looking at things. I mean, I fully understand that. I have no issue with that because, like I said, I've got people actually in my leadership of the alliance that are going to be voting Trump. But at the same time, there's a couple of things I want to address. First of all, I'm doing it from my principled view of what I believe God's going to hold me accountable to, okay? And so, going back to our earlier conversation, I'm accountable directly to the Lord about the decisions I make. And so I just in good conscience cannot vote for him. Now, I'm not saying if you do, you're doing something wrong. And I hope that your listeners are hearing that. I don't want them to hear that because personally, for me, my conviction is what God has brought into my heart, and I cannot. But for others, that may not be their conviction. But I see mine from a principled, from a pragmatic, aspect. You're right. But there are certain things that I see in the scriptures, and again, that is my foundation. That's my worldview completely, and I come at it from that. When you look at Israel's history, there was a time, and you could read about this in the book of Habakkuk, but God told Habakkuk he was going to do something in his day he would not even believe. And God literally raised up the army of the Babylonians, which was the most ruthless people on the earth, and he brought them against Israel and put them in captivity. And Habakkuk didn't understand that, but God was telling Habakkuk, the nation is under judgment. They have sinned against me. We have right now 58 million babies that have been aborted in the womb. And there's blood guilt all over this nation. And this nation is under judgment. This nation now is accepting and tolerating homosexuality as an alternative lifestyle. Not everybody, but there are many who are. And those in leadership are not only tolerating and accepting it, they're welcoming it. So it's a sure sign that judgment is upon the nation. Just look at Sodom and Gomorrah. And so I'm looking at this from a spiritual perspective totally, and I understand the practical and the pragmatic. But God told Israel that they needed to surrender to the Babylonians or they would be killed. And I kind of see this as that illustration. For me personally, I cannot vote for an individual I would never vote for Hillary Clinton because she endorses the things that God condemns. But Donald Trump has been a liberal for over 40 years, and now all of a sudden he's a conservative. And as we know, it's not that he's just a flawed candidate. He's got a lot of issues. It's not just that, just one thing. And so for me personally, I'm just telling you, for me, conviction-wise, I have to do what the Lord is saying to me. And I believe in the sovereignty of God. I don't believe there's not a Hillary Clinton, there's not a Barack Obama that could bring a nation down completely. But I do believe that we need to, again, be engaged in government, vote, and do what is right. But at the same time, at the end of the day, when we go into that voting booth, we do have to vote our conscience. We have to do it. We have a conviction and a belief. And I understand that we're in a two-party system, but the reality of it is there's nowhere in the Constitution says that we have to vote for a two-party system. And pragmatically, I understand that.
I want to come at the argument in a different manner because you're saying you're trying to do as God wills. Well, what is to say that you know what his true will is, that he did not put Donald Trump here at this time, at this place to become president? If you look at it that way, how do you then explain the Apostle Paul? Where here is a man who murdered Christians, who persecuted them, and now he's out there preaching the word of Christ. So can a person have a conversion? Can a person actually change their belief? We see it in Paul. We see it in other apostles. You had one that was a tax man that ends up being an apostle of Paul. Apostle of Christ. So
there's no argument.
But can a person actually convert without you fully understanding? Is it possible?
Yes.
Is it possible God put Donald Trump here at this time, this place, to run and win as president?
To work his will.
Well,
he works in mysterious
let me
ways.
say it like this. Well, I think asking the question, could it be that God put Donald Trump here? I don't know that I would go that far to say God put him here, because I believe that God's will is what his word says. So for example, in Exodus 18:21, it tells us clearly that those in civil authority, listen to this, but select capable men from all the people, men who fear God, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials over thousands and hundreds and fifties and tens. So we see there men who are capable men, okay? Men who fear God, men who are trustworthy, who hate dishonest gain. Recently, I was listening to when Trump said, "Yes, I'm greedy. I love money." Well, the Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. There's a lot of issues here that, see, this is God's will, Exodus 18:21. God's word is his will. So the idea that God has sent Donald Trump, I don't believe that. Now, will God allow for him to be president or allow for these things to happen? Possibly. I have to answer that. Now, let me go back to your other, statement, which I think is so important. Yes, God can change anyone. Listen, I mean, you're speaking to one who got changed, and, I'm the chief of sinners, as Paul would say. So it's not a question of can God change and use someone. Obviously, he can. Look at the Apostle Paul, like you said. But that's the issue. God changed him. Just recently, Donald Trump said he was a Christian, but a Christian who didn't need forgiveness. And we know to enter the kingdom, you need to be forgiven. Then all of a sudden, we hear that he has just accepted Christ, that Paula White led him to Christ. And so, is he a Christian? Is he not? There's just a lot of things that are uncertain from that perspective, Ann. That's what I'm saying. So certainly God can use and change anyone, but I don't know that. I would not want to stake my claim on any of that, because I don't know him personally, and all I can tell you is what we hear. We don't know any of those things to be confirmed. But look, at the end of the day, like I said, I understand the pragmatic ideas that Hillary is going to make really bad decisions, and she's going to appoint very liberal judges, and I understand that from a pragmatic view. I just need to be clear that from my convictions, personal convictions, I cannot vote for him unless he took some steps and made the wrongs right, that he apologized to people, for example, like Senator Ted Cruz, who he literally slandered, calling him a liar most of the primary season, and he has not corrected that. I know that for a fact. He threw his wife under the bus. There's some things, again, words matter to me, and I think they matter to all of us, but just some of us view it differently, and we view like, this is the nominee, we have to either vote for him or vote for the other. We can't vote for the other. So, I want your hearers to understand that that's my personal conviction. That's not the personal conviction of all of the people involved in the alliance. There are, like I said, people in the alliance that are going to vote for Trump. But you asked me the question, or actually Curtis did, and so I felt like I needed to address that.
Well, Ron in the chat room reminds us, judge not, lest you be judged. So that's why I'm asking you to try to look at it from a different angle, that, you never know who God will work through. You never know where God will do his work. So I'm asking you, take another look at it, and maybe you might find a reason that you can vote for Donald Trump. Because I do not want to see this nation fall aside. And I think it's too important an election to hand it over to Hillary Clinton. We're at such a critical spot in our nation's history that I don't want to see us lost forever. And I think should she take this office, we will be lost forever.
Well, I also think, too, that, I think we lose sight at times, and again, I'm not saying this to you or to any of your hearers, but just what I observe. I think we lose sight sometimes and think that if the presidency is lost, but the reality of it is, when we look at the three branches of government, Congress is the strongest of the three. Congress could have stopped everything Barack Obama was throwing out, but they didn't. They capitulated. And that's where we need righteous people more than any place else. We need them in Congress, the lawmakers. We need righteous people that can look at the president and say, no, we're not going to fund your liberal progressivism. If it is, if it happens to be a liberal president, I don't just look at the presidency as the only thing. We need to have Congress with righteous, strong, conservative people who can take a stand and hold that stand and not become rhinos, which unfortunately we have too many of those up there. But I just really feel, and let me just say to the listener or to the person who, wrote in Matthew 7, verse 1, judge not, we got to make sure that Scripture is kept in its context. That has nothing to do with judging what we hear and see. We're supposed to do that. As a matter of fact, further on in that same chapter, Jesus says that we're to judge false prophets. We're to, judge the fruit of their life. What he's talking about there is judging a person's motives. In other words, judging their heart when you yourself are doing the same kind of sin. You're committing the same kind of sin, and you're trying to judge a person's motive of their heart. I'm not judging Donald Trump. I don't know him, never met him. I don't know his heart. But all I'm judging is what comes out of his mouth and what he says and what he does. And we are to do that. We are to judge the fruit. And so, let's be careful that we keep things in a proper context.
Have you tried reaching out to his campaign at all to let him know what your concerns are?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, my son was interning for Matt Moore at the state level. I have friends that are on the national level, the GOP. I know people at that level that I've communicated my concerns. I was invited to be a part of that meeting in New York with Donald Trump. I did not go because when I was first invited by Tony Perkins, I'm one of the P50 pastors of the Family Research Council as well. Tony Perkins invited us. I thought it was a small gathering where we could actually ask Donald Trump some real personal questions, and I would have brought that up to him. And I would have asked him, and I would have said, are you willing to apologize to people like Senator Ted Cruz and others that you slandered? But then I found out it was going to be over 350, then it went up to 700, and then it ended up being 1,000 pastors and leaders there, and all the questions were already, pre-selected. So I just decided not to go, but I had an invitation to go to that. So I have shared my concerns. I've shared it with people on the inside, and, I'm waiting. Even Louis Gohmert said that he would support Trump if he would apologize, to Ted Cruz. So I'm just putting it out there that there are actually many people like us who really believe that it's time for us to say enough is enough. I mean, this is the greatest election, this one, but they said that last time, and they said that, the time before. And as much as I am engaged, and I always challenge my church, you have to vote. You have to get out there, and do what God has called you to do. At the same time, I do not put all the stock on the Republican Party. I certainly don't put it on, on one person. I trust in the sovereignty of God. But I also believe that we must be involved. We must do our civic duty. But I believe most of all, and Curtis, we've got to uphold the righteous standard of God above anything else. And I'm just at that point where I feel like I can't do the lesser of two evils anymore. But I do understand those who are going that direction. Like I said, I've got good friends that are doing that, and I respect their decision.
Pastor Mike.
Go ahead, Curtis.
Yes, sir.
The Founding Fathers, they were very concerned about our future leadership, and they were strong in their belief that we should have leaders who were morally correct and morally sound, and we don't have that today, and that's probably the main reason why we find this country in the situation that it is.
Yeah.
But having said that, I wanted to go back to what you said about Trump apologizing. Did he not come out and said that he had said things that he now takes back, or did you want a little more specific apology from him?
I'm not sure where he said that. I haven't heard that, but maybe. I don't want to say he didn't say that, but no,
He said he had said things about people and their families that he now regrets.
Okay, so, well, I don't have that, but if you, I mean, I'd love to see where he said that, but I don't. I've never heard him say that, personally. But I would be happy, to read that or look into it. But here's what I know, Curtis. I worked for Senator Ted Cruz. I was his evangelical chair in the state, And it's not about anything I hold against Donald Trump in a way of unforgiveness. No. I mean, I forgive it. But I know Ted Cruz personally. I know his father, Rafael. I know the family. I know Heidi personally. I worked for them. I served on their team here in the state. And I can tell you that I have not heard from them that there's been any apology for the things that were said. And when you slander a man's character and you go around calling him Lying Ted the entire primary season, I take that seriously. I mean, we cannot say that's minimal because, again, here's what we do. We say that those things are wrong. All three of us right now on this call would say that slandering a man's character is wrong, right? But at the same time, all of a sudden we nominate the very person who's been doing the slandering and not holding him accountable to apologize and to say to that individual, I'm sorry for what I said. So what kind of people are we raising in our country? What kind of people are we raising when those things don't really matter anymore? We just say, well, because let me tell you, we had a broad field. How many candidates do we have? 16, 17 running for public office, running for president? And this is the best we could do? And so it's exactly what you just said a few minutes ago. It reflects where the nation is. And look, I understand the anger. I'm angry that we send people up to Congress, conservative leaders, Tea Party people, and they end up being establishment, and they end up being moderates, and they don't hold firmly. I'm angry about that too, but my anger is not going to be that I'm going to put a guy who can say whatever he wants to and about cultures and people. I think that's what Donald Trump was referring to is what you're talking about. He apologizes for saying certain things because he's offended every culture there is, and look, I will speak the truth, and I believe we need to speak the truth concerning Islam and all of that. But when you purposely go out there and you start saying about, like Mexicans or whatever, and you're calling them names, there is no place for that. I mean, for me, you can speak the truth boldly without offending people purposely.
Well, we're down to
Okay, I just got this one thing, Annie.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, we were talking about forgiveness. Do you think Ted Cruz can forgive Trump?
Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, he has. I mean, he's not holding it against him. But see, that's what happened with his speech at the GOP. It happened to be in Cuba, and so I couldn't watch it. But I read the transcript of Ted's speech, which I thought was masterful. I thought it was a great speech. It upheld all the conservative principles, but he didn't endorse him. And obviously, he couldn't endorse him. How can you endorse a man who has said the things about you and your wife and your father, actually accusing his father of assassinating President Kennedy? I mean, these are outrageous things. So, but yes, Ted Cruz would be willing to forgive him, for sure. He's a Christian, and he would forgive him. But has there been an apology? I don't believe there has.
Well, Mike, it's been a pleasure having you on, and I think we may have
Thank you so much, Ann.
I think you and I may have crossed paths at the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition Convention. It's possible, because I was broadcasting up there. I don't know if you remember me broadcasting right next to Breitbart and Tom Trento and everything.
I do now that you said that, because I noticed your picture and I was like, it looks like somebody familiar,
I was actually looking for Wild Bill to have an interview with him when I walked up, and all of a sudden Joe Dugan was calling my name out. And I'm standing all in the back looking for Wild Bill, and that's when they gave me the award for the Patriot Award.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. Well, Ann, let me tell you this real quick. I know we need to go, but I want to thank you and Curtis for the interview. I really appreciate what you're doing across South Carolina and across our nation. I appreciate your conservative principles, your stand for righteousness and truth in our nation, and for these conservative principles that are so important to our nation. And I really appreciate, the call and the time to be able to share on your program.
It has been my pleasure. And if you run across Diane, give her a hug for me.
I will. She's right across the room from me here. I'll talk to her in a minute. God bless you all. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much. Mike Gonzalez, check out his website, which is buildingthealliance.com. Awesome interview. Great patriot. Still think he should vote for Trump, but Maybe the good Lord will change his mind on Election Day. Curtis, it has been a great show. It was so fast-paced. I extended it just a few minutes so we can get our last few words in. But we got great guests next week. We got Don Adamanti. He is a pisser. And Steve Hilton. Matter of fact, I saw Steve up on Fox News just the other day, and I said, oh, he's going to be at my radio show soon. So it'll be great. So I want everyone there to be careful out there this weekend. It is the 15th memorial of 9/11 on Sunday. Please take some time, just a few minutes, say a few prayers for the victims, and pray for our nation. Until then, I say good night and God bless. And we'll leave with Todd Allen Herndon, My Name is America, to honor all Americans.
Born in the grip of oppression, I fought for my liberty. I paid with the blood of my people. Freedom has never been free. Now my door's always open to dreamers and friends. When I'm attacked, I protect and defend. Because my name is America, I stand proud and free. My name is America, don't tread on me. I cannot be broken, I cannot be shamed. If you hurt me, I'll get stronger. And I'll rise up from the flames, and I'll always stand proud and free. I'm America, don't tread on me. America, it is my day. My strength was not taken from others, others gave it to me. They believe in the virtues I stand for, my respect for humanity. Now I'm challenged by tyrants who envy my power, but their vicious deeds become my finest hour. Because my name is America, tread on